Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dr. Cammy Goes Keto, where I'm transitioning from the standard American diet into a ketogenic lifestyle. I'm here today with Mike Collins, the sugar addiction detox coach, the sugar-free man who's helped so many people with their getting off of sugar and who is a wealth of information in so many other things too, not just getting off of sugar, but how to cope with life in a healthy way and how to have healthy mechanisms to keep us in place and to keep us doing, better things for our lives, metabolically, physically, socially, spiritually, emotionally, all of those things. So thank you so much for helping me through my journey, Mike.
Always a pleasure, Dr. Cammy. Always a pleasure. And I don't know about that spiritual part, but I'm trying.
I thought I would throw that in there and see if you caught it. You're too good. You're too good. Okay, so we were talking about all kinds of cool stuff before we started recording, but the way that we started the conversation was with me being frustrated about not being able to get my weight off and how I always knew that, fasting was going to be the last component that was missing in my repertoire of tools and things that I had going for me to help me be metabolically healthier and to get rid of my fatty liver and to get rid of 50 pounds and to get rid of, to make my brain healthier and to get rid of hypertension and to get rid of obesity and to get rid of, get my lipid profile in better shape. And yeah, so I think I'm ready. And, Mike, you were talking about how you have the feeling that you think I'm ready now. And I hope that to God that you're true, that you're right, because I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired, as we say in my AA program.
Right. No, I do. It was an intuitive feeling as you were mentioning it and talking about it. Also, you have to look at the positive of I've always known that statement. Okay. I've always known that fasting was my final whatever. It's not, but it's maybe in the weight loss, but not in the total growth of everything. Now, I want to say something super, super, super important for the people that listen to this now or in the future is that if you are just beginning a journey to detox or get off of ultra processed carbohydrates and sugar, you cannot fast for 30 or 60 or even 90 days, better the 60 or 90 days, because it just sets up too much cravings and you're just not ready emotionally or even physically to be that far off. Now, if you come in with an intermittent fasting program of 8, like you have an 8-hour window from maybe noon to 8 or something, then you can keep it and eat at, whatever, noon and 8 or noon and 6. But do not start one and do not definitely try and do a 24 or 36-hour fast or something. So I wanted to put that out there. Anyway, I think that you're ready and I think you should do it. And I think you should maybe get with Coach Nikki there and the two of you do it because she talked about doing it. I don't know if she's done it yet. And, have a partner and whatever. And you talked about the autophagy. And for the folks that are listening, autophagy is where the body cleans out the old dead cells in the brain and everywhere. And, gets it out through the sweat, pores, and the poop
Lymph system.
and everything, lymph. And so it's just a really good cleanup. And, it is true that you do lose a little bit of weight if you're fasting. A lot of times, sometimes people don't lose weight, but it does usually work that way. I think one of the things we talked about was doing difficult things, doing hard things, and growing that muscle, which is called the anterior cingulate cortex in the brain. It's kind of a midbrain thing, right? And
Yep.
we talked about that video of David Goggins and Huberman talking about this exact topic. And Huberman teaches neuroscience to med students, and he was blown away about the new research on this, where that part of your brain grows when you do difficult things. And which, what does it do? It helps you do difficult things and continue to do difficult things. And I guess the conversation they were having is like, it doesn't work if you do stuff you like. It's stuff that you don't like that you actually do, weightlifting or whatever it is, running, whatever it is. That means you'll begin to build a muscle that a true brain volume thing grows the volume of your brain. so that you can continue to do difficult things and get better at whatever you want to do. So I'm all for it. I'm in support there, Dr. Kim.
All right, so we'll see. I mean, I have some real concerns. It's hard because I went through, I actually went through inpatient treatment for binge eating disorder, and I was inpatient for 42 days and then had intensive outpatient therapy following that for
Mm,
weeks, where I was taught that all foods fit. And that did not work for me. That did not work as a sugar addict. And I came out of there, I can't remember, it was 12 or 15 pounds heavier. And yeah, eating all this sugar and food that was now I feel is really not my food, not healthy for me to be eating. But one of the things that is still talked about in a lot of the Overeaters Anonymous meetings that I go to are 3 square meals a day with no snacking in between. And so I have been trying to, you know, do that, and I've been pretty good. I'm only like day 36 today right now of no sugar, flour, or caffeine from my last eating off plan, little 5-day bender when my son came into town. But I was telling Mike that I think for the most part, for the last like year and a half, I'm more days off than on of sugar, definitely, and getting that into better position for the fasting. And I'm just really feeling that as metabolically sick as I am with my high insulin resistance and my fatty liver and my, obesity and just the way that I am metabolically right now, that fasting is going to be a really good helper to help me get more metabolically fit and hopefully to get some of my weight off too, because I'm just really frustrated with that. The last time I weighed in with Jeff on last Saturday, I had lost 2 pounds in 2 weeks, but I had gained, 4% body fat because my lean muscle mass went down, and I am on that Zepbound. And that was kind of an interesting weigh in because usually my lean muscle mass does not go down. It either stays the same or goes up. And that week, the 2 weeks that I was in there, I was still doing my weightlifting and all of my walking to train up for this little 5K I have going on in May and the usual routine of the exercise. So I was a little kind of surprised about those findings, but we'll see what happens on my next weigh in. It could just be a little glitch in the system. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into ketosis. That's a big part of my motivation because the more I learn more and more as I'm taking the certification to become a metabolic health practitioner, the more, which is a hard thing, by the way, because I'm ready to be done with that. I still have about 9 videos left, and it's like painstaking at the end because these videos are so excellent and so full of information, and I take good notes, and it's a lot of work to go through these videos, and I must have gone through 50 videos and I'm ready to be done. I had no idea it was going to be this long of an endeavor. But the other thing that we talked about as far as hard things was doing the sauna and the cold, right? Like
yeah.
getting into the hot and cold. And I do have a sauna up at my community center, and I have a shower right next door there so I can take a nice cold shower and
Mm,
get in and out of the hot and cold and
yeah.
do some of these difficult things, which are hard, which I don't like the cold part. And
Right.
I can't really tolerate much of the hot part. But, that's how you grow. That's how you get better. That's how you grow that anterior cingulate cortex, which is such a great part of your brain to be developing.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything, like I said, I don't know if I mentioned it, but if not, it bears repeating even, is that I get this feel that you're just ready, and it could be a confluence of things. It could be this intersection of doing the metabolic certification, of, the weight, being sick and tired, that kind of stuff. And, having the Zepbound actually do one of its negatives, which is losing muscle mass. And so you don't need any of that stuff in your life. And we had talked about, I interviewed on Monday, I interviewed Dr. Jason Fung, who is the fasting guy. And he talked a lot about, I brought it up in his chapters, his new book, chapter 6, 7, and 8. The whole section is about addiction recovery. And I got him talking about that, which almost nobody ever asks him about. And almost no one like him, what I refer to as the body guys who talked about the body and how it works, and never talked about this addiction stuff. And you had mentioned, and this is kind of a caveat or more of an educational part, an educational tidbit for the folks who have, like you, a similar background, whether it's 12 steps or a treatment center, or even a recovery or a belief or a following of, or someone who wrote a book or was a guru online. for emotional eating. All of these people believe that if you demonize a food, if you can't eat a little bit of flour, a little bit of sugar, then you're not well, you're not done, you don't graduate, you're not finished. And Dr. Fung talked about this a little bit, right? And he talked to the same thing that Dr. Lustig told me 5 years ago or something. It's like, yeah, those guys all have to die. It's a 30-year process. You know, you have to like, they have to like, they're so entrenched in this belief, this long-term belief that they're not willing to change it. Okay. I mean, I tell the story of being at it was a big recovery convention for professionals, right? And the two speakers were from a treatment center, both markedly overweight folks. And I'm not judging, I'm just, stating a fact. And they were talking about this same topic. They were talking about, you can't demonize a food. You can't allow not have one food. And the emotional eating folks, everybody knows about comfort food. The emotional eating thing is real. But I think the answer for me personally for understanding it is like you have to decide if sugar and flour, ultra processed carbohydrates treat you like a drug or is it treat you like a food, a whole food, right? A real food that is not from the inside of the grocery store. And I think those are important determinations for you if you're listening to this or, if you're on this journey. So,
Yeah, like even the definition of what is a food, right? I mean,
right,
these ultra processed foods are really ultra processed chemicals and poison by the time you alter them so significantly from where they start.
yes. The crazy part about and he mentions it actually, it's a pretty long part of the book, something called the Nova system, invented by a gentleman in South America, which ranks food on a scale of 1 to 4. 4 is whole food and 1 is whole food and 4 is ultra processed. And but on the second layer, the second zone or whatever they call it, the second grouping, they do have sugar and flour as something that would be ingredients in something you would make whole food. So there's a little bit of a glitch there. And Dr. Fung and I did not disagree on almost anything, but that one thing, I actually did an interview with Joan Iflin about this when it first came out, a long time ago, not long, yeah, a couple of years now where they have that. And it's so funny because I was listening to Susan Pierce Thompson do an interview with a very famous, she's 89 years old, Marion Nelson Nessel. And she's a food writer and she's very educated, talks about policy, government policy and food and everything. And even she was very kind of dismissive of that second part of the Novus system. She was very dismissive, like, she said, "Well, I like sugar," and it's like it's it's a little bit of a problem for recovering sugar addicts, right? Susan didn't press it, she was pretty good about it, but it is a problem to ingest sugar. At least you have to do what Dr. Cammy's doing is get yourself 90 full days, 120 full days, half a year of 0 reset, and then see what happens if you think it's been
Mhm.
a problem.
Yeah. I know. I think about that, like, about like cake on my birthday or something, or, once or twice a year, a little something. And I just don't know what's going to pan out for me ultimately, because I just know that for now, for today, it's just better that I don't eat that stuff. And I really am a big proponent of taking it one day at a time. And, I really also am very glad, Mike, that you talked about how important it is to not be fasting when you first come in and start working on getting off of the sugar and getting off the ultra processed foods. And that, it's a journey, right? There's steps that you go through.
Right.
And this is kind of, I feel like I'm getting toward the final steps of at least trying to get my ideas around how I manage my food in order, the whole process of how I manage my food is fasting is going to be that ultimate part of it. So we'll see how it goes. But this has been going on me. It's going on 3 years. Like September will be 3 years for me. So that's a long time. This has
Right.
been a long time coming for me.
It took me 3 years, but I didn't have any help or anybody to talk to really. So, back in the day, 30 some odd years ago, it does take time. And when I look at my evolution over the I went 25 years eating no flour, no sugar, and caffeine, but I was eating fruit and dried fruit and fruit juice and grains and whatever. And it was enough for me to be stepping down in the early days. Right. And so, yeah, it's a journey for everyone. Everyone's a little bit different. And the more that I do this, the more that I am believing that this is the worst pandemic the world has ever known. This is in 1,000 years, in 500 years, they will look back at this time period as the human guinea pig era, where you know big pharma, big food, kind of hijacked who we are, big medicine and pills and out of the other side is going to come 2 or 3 things that work, but at what cost? There's no one alive that's going to, uh, I don't think, even marginally benefit from this experiment, this huge society-wide, worldwide, planet-wide experiment, who's going to be alive when the experiment ends in 100 or 200 years, right? The early science is very clear on what I'm saying here, as far as definitely on ultra processed food and sugar, but even the pharma stuff has its dissenters. And anyway, I don't want to get off on that tangent, but I'm just saying, you really have to be your own person and you have to do your own research. And moreover, if what Dr. Cammy and I have talked through this series is something that's resonating with you because you've tried different things over the years and dieted over the years, it may be time to try a 100% abstinence. Like an alcoholic who tries to go into treatment, no one comes to me for 100% abstinence. They come to me to learn how to use sugar normally, right? And I
Yeah.
know there's a big adjustment to that. There's a big adjustment to the change process or the thought process or the actual reality of none, Michael, zero, Michael. Like there's
Yeah.
a shock value to it of some sort. And a lot of people don't do it. They just won't do it because a lot of it's the social component or whatever, but yeah, I mean, I don't like to sugarcoat things, and my marketing folks on my team don't want me to tell people that it's hard, it's difficult. There are challenges in this process that you must grow your anterior cingulate cortex in order to get through and do hard things. And the reward is so incredible, as witnessed by all the people that and I know that have actually done it and are doing it.
Right, right. And, that's when we talk about group support, like in our sugar addiction groups and how important that is and your community and really involving others, enrolling a team of people to help you get better and healthier, is really crucial and important, I think, for the success of it.
Dr. Fung mentioned the same thing, he talked about it. So it's catching on, the understanding is catching on. They don't have to be an addiction recovery specialist. The reality of, and I'm sure they probably mentioned it in your course on metabolic health,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's that those guys are catching on. Again, the body guys and gals, 100 years we've studied all this stuff, and now we're studying, well, all these people, we tell them to do it, and they don't do it. And then we want to know why they don't do it and how could they do it? How would they do it if they were to be successful, right? And so that's kind of where we come in. And we're a little ahead of the curve on that, but I think everyone's catching up that they need some group support and they need a different protocol than eat less and exercise more.
And make all foods fit.
And make all foods fit, right, exactly. I'm gonna add that to my eat less and exercise more because that's a great addition, it's so true.
Yeah. And that's what's not working for decades.
I wanted to mention a guy, his name is Dr. David Wiss, spelled Wiss. Dr. Wiss is the only ambassador I feel to both sides of the equation. And as far as solid experience in actual treatment centers where all foods fit, and then understanding and working with addicts and the addiction construct. So he susses out the nuances, right? He susses out the nuances of the difference. So he's a good resource too.
Good. All right. I'll put his name down. I'll put a link to him or something so that people will remember that name. All right. Well, thanks so much, Mike, for being here today and for chatting with me today about starting up a fasting program. I think, I'm going to start little, like 24 or 36-hour fast, and then try to keep, a window, an eating window on the days that I am eating, you know, pretty tight, which I've been doing as I'm on this day 36 of no sugar and flour and caffeine. I've had a pretty tight window of eating. I would say that I normally eat usually around 8 in the morning, and then I'm usually done eating. I try to be done by 5, but sometimes it's not till 6. So how long is that? 8, 12, 10-hour window with 14 hours of fasting when I am eating. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll just continue our journey. And thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Keep up the good work.
All right. Thanks. Everybody take care. Bye.